The importance of oracles. Oracles are one of those things that not many people talk about. They don't discuss them very much, and they don't really understand them on the type of deep level that's really required in order to really appreciate and invest in them in many cases. So I wanted to make a video that talked in general about oracles. This isn't a chain link video. This is more general crypto. Where I wanted to talk and discuss oracles. So I will first explain what an oracle is in very layman's terms. So an oracle, all it does is provide data. So if you build an app today on Ethereum, and you build a gambling app, you can gamble with your friend. Great. But if you build a gambling app that bets on the sports results of a game, an NFL game or a football game or a basketball game, well, that, my friend, is off-chain data. So the question is, how do we get this off-chain data on chain? Because the chain doesn't know, it can't figure out what the scores are. So you need to make this data, the results of these games, in a machine readable format that Ethereum can accept, or whatever your smart contract platform is. And so what this is called is an oracle. You use an oracle, and an oracle takes this data, packages it into a readable format, and then it gives it to the blockchain of choice. In this case, in most cases, I would just use Solidity as an example. So, in the very, very basic sense, oracles simply allow blockchain to connect with the real world, with the meat space. And so it gives you a lot more robust capability, the ability to do all sorts of different things, really, because we have to consider the world itself. I don't know who said this quote, but the world itself is really just people talking. That's all the world is. It's all businesses. It's all war is. It's all politics. It's just people talking, people in a room talking. And so if we can't get these conversations, let's say, onto the blockchain, then what the hell are we doing on blockchain? You know, computers are only relevant insofar as they can actually affect change in the real world. Just like knowledge and information. You can spend your time reading something, but if you don't actually apply that knowledge, then you basically just wasted your time. You didn't actually do much of anything. You didn't learn much of anything. And so this is the same thing with oracles. We have these amazing blockchains now. We have these smart contract platforms that do all these great things. They're great and wonderful, but they cannot be activated unless they actually hook up into the real world and into the meat space and get this data. So this is why oracles are extremely important. And people don't really see oracles as important, but I see them as being a necessary function, a necessary requirement in the recipe for truly bringing crypto blockchain adoption to the mainstream. So, in general, now we look at what we have currently. What we have currently in crypto without secure oracles is a whole hella bunch of gambling games and insecure prediction markets, and that's it. We don't really have much of anything. And it's not out of devs not trying, because they certainly are trying, but it's just that without a proper oracle, you simply cannot build these things. So with oracles, we unlock things like robust prediction markets, like finance markets, like sports, like games, like all of these different things that hook up into the real world. I saw a project last year. I don't know if they're still working, but what they were trying to do was IoT. So IoT devices are very, very small devices, and they don't have a lot of RAM in them. And the idea was, well, we can assign these devices with an identifier, or basically an address that connects to the KPI, the public key interface, or PKI. So like Ethereum, you would have an address, and what you could do with this address is the nodes run all of the software, so that this little robot or this little IoT device doesn't actually have to do any kind of processing, because it can't, because IoT devices are so small. And so now you have this oracle between the IoT device and the actual nodes, the Ethereum nodes that are processing this, which is really interesting. So it enables all of these different kind of things. It enables the ability for me to check, let's say, the temperature in Asia or in the rice fields in China, and then I can deliver that data through the blockchain in a very secure and decentralized manner without having to worry about things like regulations or governments getting in the way. And it's awesome. So we get this meat space, this real world capability and this real world use and real world impact without, while also leveraging all of the blockchain advantages. So that's great. Now, up until recently, I would say that the main problem with oracles has been that there's been no real way of properly decentralizing them first. And then there's also this concept of oracle bribing. So I'll talk about oracle bribing first. The idea of oracle bribing is very simple. With an oracle, you can bribe an oracle. So let's say you run a node and you say that, well, I am the node and I am providing the score for the Mets game. Well, if someone pays you enough money as an individual, the incentive for you becomes a lot higher to take his money and give a false result than it is to maintain the truth and give a truthful result. It's almost too easy in that sense, right? Where if you're running this node, you almost always want to get bribed. And so it becomes a battle of who can pay the most, who can get the best bribe in order to get the result that they want so that they can win the money or they can win the gamble or they can win whatever it is. So historically it has been bribing. Now that's more of a hypothetical because I haven't really seen many examples of bribing at all. This would have to be on something like Oracleize, and I don't think any of these companies, or Infura, I don't think any of these companies have really taken the bait in that sense. But certainly it is a hypothetical risk. Now, the second problem has been the decentralization of these oracles. So up until very, very recently, with the advent of chains like Chainlink, we really haven't had a way to decentralize our oracles. So we've really only had Oracleize, we've had Infura, we've had, I can't remember, there's another one that does oracles. And the problem with all of these has been that they're centralized. So if you have one central data aggregator, you cannot properly use that oracle because you're basically feeding your decentralized system with centralized data. If you're feeding centralized data, then your output is going to be centralized. And so that's been the real problem with oracles up until lately. Obviously, now we have several different options for oracles, Chainlink being the largest one of them, which is the most important, I would think, in my opinion, and one of the ones that people really need to be looking at. Because it is one of those things that takes all of these different concepts, that takes the idea of an oracle that connects to the meat space. That's why they're doing all of these business partnerships and also keeping the decentralized aspect of it by letting node validators run their own nodes and figure out their own way of getting the data so that your data feeds are now decentralized. So that's really been, and that's the historical oracle problem. That's been the famous oracle problem that hasn't been solved up until Chainlink. So again, this isn't a Chainlink video, but it does come into play. It does come into play as one of the players in this massive web of figuring out exactly where oracles come in, exactly how oracles can be utilized. And so I have always looked at oracles in general as the next big step for blockchains. So we have blockchains now that exist that are very functional. We have blockchain 3.0 now. They're next generation. They're fast. They're easy to use. They're easy to develop on. And so we have the infrastructure here now where we've been able to actually scale things beyond the 10 TPS or so of Bitcoin, right? We've been able to scale beyond that into very fast TPS. We have the development infrastructure there. And so we have the capability to build these apps. And so the next step to me is utilizing oracles to take these apps to the next level, to actually hook them up into the real world, into the mainstream, to doing these things like IoT devices that are going to bring billions and billions of dollars. IoT is obviously one of the industries that has been on the rise because of all these IoT devices. Securing these things is going to make a hell of a lot of money for whatever team decides to do it. And so that's not the only example, right? So there's a million other examples. So finance markets, tracking of currency, exchange rates, all of these different things can really be unlocked on the blockchain if and only if oracles are actually utilized and if second generation oracles like Chainlink actually come into play and start getting developer adoption and all of these things. This video was sponsored by Cryptowatch. Are you a crypto degen? Do you spend countless hours in front of your PC babysitting your leverage trades? Well, babysit no longer. With Cryptowatch, you can spend countless hours in the comforts of your own bed, waiting for those SMS alerts. Track how wrecked your portfolio is that week with their portfolio tracker. And you can also check the price of your favorite shitcoins. If you'd like to join Cryptowatch, there's a link in the description below. Happy trading.